got caught off guard by the ice already this season. It is the 2022-2023 ice season, and just 2 weeks ago I was out in the water in the boat with Brett Blumendahl out on the big lake at Lake Skakawea. Now I had to pull out the #1 lures out of the boat and stick them in my sled because it is time to go ice fishing. So pulling everything out of the attic today and getting all the gear ready. I'll bring you along for the ride so that you can see what kind of gear I like to set up and prepare. So stay tuned, you're gonna love it. So #1 things, obviously what you're wearing. You could go fishing with bibs in a box. That's really all you need. Bibs, a nice coat, corkers. I like to go on my waterproof boots. This isn't exactly a light box, but this is usually what I like to carry with me even if I'm just walking out on the ice. Have that, bibs in a box. You need a good redneck to go along with you. Without the redneck, you don't know if the ice is safe, so that's what I like to do. Make sure I bring that along. It's a good spud bar. You have 2 good hits with that. If you go through the ice with 2 good hits on that, that means it's not safe. So that spud bar is probably #1 after your clothing. Some electronics, sometimes it's handy to have, is this Markham Technologies. It's a digital sonar, LXI. Sometimes if the ice isn't very thick, early ice, you can actually just pour some water on top of the ice and then put this down on top of the ice and it'll tell you what the depth is. Most of the time I have to drill a hole and then stick that in the hole and it'll tell you a digital readout what the depth is. It's real handy if you're not bringing along some fancy electronics, because that's what I've been using for the last few years, and I happen to fall into this awesome Cabela's flasher. This thing ended up working out really great for me for the last few years. It's simply a VXR. It's a Cabela's VXR. It's probably close to 20 years old now. And I got it for 20 bucks at a garage sale, so I couldn't pass that up. I've only had to replace a battery, and it works great. So this flasher, it makes a little noise. It's a little bit louder than your average flasher. The newer ones, those models are a little quieter, but it works great. I would suggest finding a good flasher, or just any flasher to be honest with you, like I did. And that's what's brought in the fish for me, at least kind of gamify it a little bit, make it a little easier to know that you're on fish. If you're in the shelter, Big Buddy, if you got a clam, I got a Bigfoot here, and then I got the Mr. Heater. I got the dual panel because of the Bigfoot. I had the single panel ones and they just didn't cut it when you're inside the Bigfoot here, so I decided to go with the Big Buddy. Speaking of drilling through the ice, if you're gonna do any kind of drilling, you could start with something like this. This is the handheld ice auger, actually. It's by Eskimo, and I just attached a clam adapter plate on there, and then I plug in my Milwaukee, the Red Lithium XC 5.0. Gotta have something that level on there, and then once you get it going, you can drill through the ice pretty good with one of those. It's got to be the brushless, cordless brushless drill in order to get through the ice. So if you already have a drill laying around, doesn't really matter what brand it is. I do have a Strike Master. I've got this one's not exactly good for walking. If I'm going to be walking out, I got a Strike Master 40 volt. It's a little heavier, but this is the kind, it's good for re-drilling holes. So if you're in a permanent shack instead of a hub and you need to re-drill your holes, you're going to need something like this. If you're going to do new holes every day, you can use the Eskimo just fine. And those blades, they cut pretty good. So, but that's what I use sometimes if if the ice is thick enough for the pickup, no reason not to bring the big boy. Also, if you're going to set up your hub, you're going to want another drill. I usually leave my drill on the handheld auger just to make it easier. Then I bring my other drill along with that adapter. You're going to want the heavy duty ice anchor. Don't use the cheap ones. And you can see if you get any of them bent, if you get any slight bend in it, it actually doesn't go in very well. So I'm not sure, I might have to end up retiring that one since it's already bent out of shape. If you're using minnows, I like to bring a bubble box with, and I've got the Frabill insulated minnow bucket here. And it's good to have that running alongside, keep the minnows percolating there. Usually when they're cold, as long as you, the only reason why I'd keep an aerator in there is to keep it from icing up real quick, but if you're inside a hub, it's not that big of a deal. And cold minnows, they last forever anyways. I also like to bring ice picks when I just wear these around my neck. Have them easy access, so if you do fall in, you got something to get out of the water, you know. And I don't have the fancy flotation suit right now, so this is going to be it for me. This will be my lifesaver if I happen to go in. I like to get out on early ice if it's 4 inches, 3-4 inches, but with the spud bar, making sure I check before I even bring all my gear out. And then I always wearing these 100% of the time. So don't forget those. If you're in the shack, it's good to have one of these. If you're gonna do the hub, need a propane tank. You could use a bigger one or a smaller one. I bring a 5-pound most of the time. Makes most of the day. If I'm gonna spend the night, I'm gonna bring more along. So if I'm gonna do some ice camping, I'll have another one to go just in case. You also need to have, if you don't already have an ice scoop, make sure you got an ice scoop to scoop out the hole. And if you're fishing in North Dakota, it's good to have a couple tip-ups at least. So I bring some tip-up gear in that bucket. If I'm just doing a quick fish with my bibs in a box, then I just try to take that sled with and try to keep it minimal. You don't really need that much. You just need a couple poles, and you know, if you want to throw up a couple tip-ups and a couple dead sticks, or if you have one jigging, then that's all you really need. Another thing I've really enjoyed is keeping the fish alive. I know it's the middle of winter, you can just throw your fish out on the ice and they'll be nice and fresh anyway. They'll be practically frozen solid. Nice thing about this live well, you drill a hole, stick the fish in there, and they'll just stay nice and fresh. They don't die, they don't freeze up on you, get solid. So when you go to the cleaning station later, you can, or if you bring them home, they're easier to fillet. So I just really like using this thing. It's made by Clam. It is the fish well. So I like to use that all the time if I'm gonna keep fish. That's really it on the big stuff. The small stuff, just a couple rods. I don't have anything special. I've got a couple things, some stiffer rods for the jaw jacker. So, but I don't have anything special. Just some lures, some spoons. I've got some flutter spoons and some ripping wraps and jigging wraps. I like just regular jigs with minnows. Those are especially good on the dead sticks, and those work great on the jaw jacker. Well, I hope that helps you out, and stay tuned for more fishing action on Lake Audubon and big Lake Sakakawea when it starts to freeze over too. I think it's going to be a long and cold winter. You're going to love it.